At our annual holiday gala, my sibling whispered, "Mom's faking her illness for the inheritance?" My brother Marcus grabbed my arm during the champagne toast at our family's annual holiday gala and pulled me into the library. His face was pale, his hand shaking as he held his phone. "We need to talk." "No. It's about Mom." I followed him, assuming he wanted to discuss the new treatment options we'd been researching for her stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Instead, he showed me a photo that would destroy our family. "She's not sick, Olivia. She's been faking it. All of it. I'm Olivia Hartwell, and I'm the youngest of 3 children in a family worth approximately $47 million. That wealth comes from my grandmother Catherine, who built a pharmaceutical empire in the 1970s. At 86 years old, she still controlled the family fortune with an iron fist, and we all knew the inheritance would be divided according to her very particular standards of family loyalty and need. 6 months before that Christmas gala, my mother Ellen had dropped a bomb on our family. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, inoperable, 6 to 12 months to live. The diagnosis came from Dr. Harrison Reed, one of the most respected oncologists in the country. Mom showed us the scans, the blood work, the treatment plan. We all saw the medical evidence with our own eyes. Grandmother Catherine was devastated. Despite their sometimes complicated relationship, Ellen was her only daughter. The thought of losing her child before her own death broke something in my normally stoic grandmother. Within weeks, she'd restructured her will to ensure Mom would be comfortable in her final months. The original will had divided the estate roughly equally between Mom and her 2 siblings, my Uncle James and Aunt Patricia. Each would receive about $15 million with small trusts set up for us grandchildren. But after Mom's diagnosis, Grandmother changed everything. Mom would now receive $25 million immediately to ensure quality end-of-life care and leave something substantial for her children. Uncle James and Aunt Patricia would split the remaining $22 million after Grandmother's death. The grandchildren's trusts were reduced to fund Mom's immediate needs. I remember Uncle James's face when the family lawyer explained the new arrangement. He tried to look sympathetic, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was losing $10 million because his sister was dying. The math was cruel but simple. Mom moved into Grandmother's estate so she could receive around-the-clock care. She quit her job as an art gallery director, saying she needed to focus on her health and spending time with family. She started chemotherapy, or at least that's what she told us. She lost weight, lost her hair, looked genuinely ill. We rallied around her. My brother Marcus took a leave of absence from his finance job to help coordinate her care. My sister Diane flew in from London every month to spend time with her. I moved back home from my apartment downtown to be there for her final months. The gala was a family tradition going back 40 years. Every Christmas, Grandmother hosted a black tie event at her estate for family, close friends, and important business associates. Despite Mom's illness, Grandmother insisted on continuing the tradition. "Life goes on," she said. "Ellen wouldn't want us to stop living." Mom attended in a wheelchair, wearing a beautiful gown and a silk headscarf covering her bald head. She looked frail but radiant, holding court with guests who wanted to pay their respects. People cried when they saw her. They hugged her carefully, telling her how brave she was. She smiled weakly and thanked everyone for their prayers and support. I was getting champagne from the bar when Marcus found me. His face had this strange expression I couldn't read. Fear mixed with anger, mixed with something else. He physically dragged me away from the party into Grandmother's library and locked the door. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Is Mom okay? Did something happen?" "Mom's fine. Too fine, actually." He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "I hired a private investigator." "You what? Why would you?" "Because something felt wrong. The timing, the way she presented the diagnosis, how quickly Grandmother changed the will. So I hired someone to verify everything. And Olivia, she's not sick. She never was." He showed me his phone. There was a photograph of Mom from earlier that week, walking into a luxury day spa in the city. No wheelchair, no weakness, no headscarf. She looked healthy, vibrant, her chemo-ravaged body looking perfectly normal in yoga pants and a tank top. Her supposedly bald head had a short pixie cut, clearly hair that had been shaved intentionally, not lost to chemotherapy. "That could be from before the diagnosis," I said weakly, even though I could see the date stamp was from 3 days ago. Marcus swiped to the next photo. Mom at a restaurant with a man I didn't recognize, laughing over wine and pasta. The next photo showed her at a hotel, entering with the same man. The timestamps were all recent, all during time she'd told us she was too sick to leave the estate. "Who is that?" I asked. "His name is Dr. Harrison Reed." The name hit me like a punch. Her oncologist? Her fake oncologist. He's not board certified. He lost his medical license 8 years ago for insurance fraud. He's been working with Mom to fabricate her entire diagnosis. I sat down hard on grandmother's leather sofa. My mind was racing, trying to process what Marcus was telling me. The scans, the blood work. We saw the medical records. All falsified. The PI tracked down the imaging center where the scans supposedly came from. They have no record of Mom ever being a patient. The blood work was from a real cancer patient whose records Reed had access to before losing his license. He's been recycling old medical files and changing the names. This can't be real. Why would Mom do this? Marcus sat down next to me, his voice bitter. $18 million. That's why. She knew grandmother was updating her will. She knew she was splitting the estate 3 ways. So she created a terminal illness to guarantee she'd get the majority before grandmother died. But grandmother isn't that old. She could live another decade. Exactly. And in that decade, Uncle James or Aunt Patricia could need money or curry favor or do something to change the will again. Mom wanted to secure her inheritance now while she could control the narrative. I felt sick. Our mother, the woman who'd raised us, who'd taught us about honesty and integrity, had faked cancer to steal from her own mother. Does anyone else know? I asked. Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. We need to figure out what to do. Through the library windows I could see the gala continuing. Mom was in her wheelchair accepting sympathy from grandmother's oldest friend. She was wiping away tears, playing the dying daughter to perfection. And grandmother was watching her with such love and sadness that I wanted to scream. We have to tell grandmother, I said. Are you sure? This will destroy her. Finding out her daughter is capable of this level of deception. She deserves to know. And if we don't tell her, we're complicit in the fraud. Marcus nodded slowly. After the gala, we'll present everything to her privately. Give her time to process before making any decisions. We returned to the party separately, trying to act normal. But everything looked different now. I watched Mom laugh at someone's joke, watched her gratefully accept a donation to her medical fund, watched her squeeze grandmother's hand with tears in her eyes. Every gesture was a calculated lie. Diane found me near the end of the evening. You look upset. Is everything okay? I wanted to tell her, but Marcus and I had agreed to present the evidence together. Just worried about Mom. This party is probably exhausting for her. She's so brave, Diane said, watching our mother. I don't know how she stays so positive facing what she's facing. I had to walk away before I said something I'd regret. The gala ended around midnight. Guests departed, offering final hugs and well wishes to Mom. She played her role perfectly until the last car left the driveway. Then I saw her face change. The weak, brave cancer patient disappeared, replaced by someone who looked tired but healthy. She wheeled herself to her room without assistance, moving the chair with strength that contradicted months of supposed decline. Marcus and I had agreed to meet with grandmother the next morning. Neither of us slept. I kept thinking about all the moments over the past 6 months. The chemo appointments we'd driven her to. The nights I'd held her hand through treatment side effects. The conversations about her final wishes, her funeral arrangements, what she wanted us to remember about her. All lies. Carefully constructed, meticulously performed lies. Grandmother took her breakfast in the sunroom every morning at 8. Marcus and I arrived together, asking if we could speak with her privately. She dismissed her assistant and looked at us with concern. What's wrong? Is it your mother? Did something happen overnight? Grandmother, there's no easy way to say this, Marcus began. We have evidence that Mom has been faking her cancer diagnosis to manipulate her inheritance. The color drained from grandmother's face. That's impossible. I've seen the medical records. Dr. Reed has been treating her. Marcus pulled out his laptop and showed her everything. The photos of Mom healthy and active. The records from the imaging center showing no patient history. Dr. Reed's medical license suspension. Bank records showing payments from Mom to Reed over the past 7 months. The private investigator had been thorough. He'd documented everything, building an airtight case that Mom's illness was an elaborate fraud. Grandmother aged 10 years as she reviewed the evidence. Her hands shook holding the laptop. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't make a sound. When she'd seen everything, she closed the computer and sat in silence for a long time. How long have you known? She finally asked. I started investigating 3 weeks ago, Marcus said. I got final confirmation yesterday. We wanted to tell you immediately, but not during the gala. Does Ellen know you're aware? No. We came straight to you. Grandmother stood up and walked to the window, looking out at her estate. She'd built this empire from nothing. Worked 70-hour weeks for decades. Sacrificed relationships and health to create generational wealth for her family. And her daughter had repaid that sacrifice with the cruelest betrayal imaginable. Call the family lawyer, Grandmother said quietly. And call Dr. Reed's licensing board. I want a full investigation. And I want Ellen out of my house by this evening. Grandmother, are you sure? I started. She turned to face us and I'd never seen her look so cold. My daughter faked a terminal illness to steal from me. She let me grieve her impending death for 6 months. She accepted sympathy, donations, changed legal documents, all based on lies. I'm sure. The lawyer arrived within the hour. By noon, the licensing board had been contacted and started their investigation into Dr. Reed. By 2 p.m., grandmother's security team had been briefed. By 4 p.m., confrontation time had arrived. Grandmother called a family meeting in the library. Mom wheeled in looking concerned, probably thinking this was about her treatment plan. Uncle James and Aunt Patricia were there too, along with Diane, who still didn't know what was happening. Marcus and I stood by the door. Ellen, I need you to explain something to me, grandmother began, her voice steady but cold. How is it that you're dying of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, yet you were photographed 4 days ago at a day spa looking perfectly healthy? Mom's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't left the estate except for medical appointments. Grandmother nodded to the lawyer, who pulled up the photos on a large screen. Mom healthy and laughing at a restaurant. Mom entering a hotel with Dr. Reed. Mom walking without assistance, no wheelchair, no weakness. The room exploded. Uncle James started shouting. Diane started crying. Aunt Patricia looked like she might faint. Mom just stared at the photos, her mouth opening and closing without sound. How could you? Grandmother's voice cracked for the first time. How could you do this to me? To your children? To this family? Mom tried several approaches. First, denial. Those photos were doctored, this was a conspiracy by jealous relatives. Then justification. She did it because she needed financial security and grandmother was planning to give everything to the charity foundation. Then victimhood. She was under so much stress that she had a mental breakdown and didn't know what she was doing. None of it worked. The evidence was too solid and her performance too obviously calculated. I'm not sick, she finally admitted, her voice flat. I wanted to secure my inheritance before you died. James and Patricia have always been your favorites. I knew if I waited I'd end up with nothing. So you faked cancer? Diane screamed. I left my family in London every month. I cried myself to sleep thinking about losing you. And you were fine the whole time. You don't understand the pressure, Mom said. Growing up as Catherine Hartwell's daughter. Never being good enough. Never matching her success. This was my chance to finally get what I deserved. You deserved nothing, grandmother said coldly. You were getting $15 million. That wasn't enough? You had to steal and lie. 15 million split 3 ways with your siblings who actually earned your favor. I wanted what should have been mine as your only daughter. The mask had fully dropped now. This wasn't a sick woman or a desperate mother. This was someone who'd carefully planned and executed a long-term fraud, and her only regret was getting caught. Grandmother stood up. You have until 6 p.m. to leave my property. Take only what you brought with you 6 months ago. Everything I've given you since the false diagnosis will remain here, as it was obtained through fraud. You're kicking me out? I'm your daughter. You stopped being my daughter when you faked a terminal illness to manipulate me. Get out of my house. Security escorted Mom out an hour later. She tried everything, crying, begging, threatening legal action, but grandmother was unmovable. We watched her pack her car with the few possessions she'd brought from her apartment. The wheelchair stayed. The medication stayed. The mountain of gifts from sympathetic friends and family stayed. As her car disappeared down the driveway, grandmother collapsed. Just folded in on herself sobbing. I'd never seen her cry before, not in 30 years of knowing her. Marcus and I held her while she grieved for the daughter she thought she'd had. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Uncle James wanted to press criminal charges for fraud. Aunt Patricia wanted to sue for the emotional distress of believing her sister was dying. Diane stopped speaking to Mom entirely. Marcus and I were caught between anger at what she'd done and residual love for the mother who'd raised us. The family lawyer explained our options. Criminal fraud charges were possible but difficult to prove without Mom's cooperation. Civil suits for the money already transferred could be filed but would be expensive and public. Or we could handle it privately, family resolving family business. Grandmother chose a middle path. She filed complaints with the medical licensing board about Dr. Reed, ensuring he'd face consequences for his role. She had her lawyer send Mom a letter demanding return of the $3.2 million already transferred, with the threat of fraud charges if she refused. And she completely restructured her will again, removing Mom entirely and redistributing her share among the remaining family members and charity foundations. Mom hired her own lawyers who claimed she had a mental breakdown due to family pressure and stress. They tried to paint her as a victim of grandmother's controlling nature and impossible standards. They demanded she keep the money already transferred as compensation for years of emotional abuse. It went to arbitration after 6 months of negotiation. The arbitrator reviewed all evidence and ruled against Mom. She had to return $2.8 million of what she'd received, plus pay legal fees. The remaining $400,000 was considered spent and unrecoverable. She kept nothing from the fraudulent inheritance grab. Dr. Reed lost his ability to practice medicine in any capacity and faced criminal charges for insurance fraud and falsifying medical records. He eventually pled guilty and served 18 months in prison. He claimed Mom had approached him with the plan, offering him $100,000 to help fake the diagnosis. She claimed he'd been the mastermind. The truth probably lay somewhere in between. The scandal became public despite our best efforts to keep it private. Someone leaked the story to the press and suddenly our family drama was tabloid fodder. Pharmaceutical heiress's daughter fakes cancer for inheritance, ran on multiple websites. Mom's photo was everywhere, portrayed as the villain she was. Her friends abandoned her. Her social circle evaporated. She couldn't get work in the art world after the scandal. Last I heard, she'd moved to another state and changed her name, trying to rebuild a life away from the wreckage she'd created. Grandmother recovered slowly from the betrayal. She threw herself into her charity work, creating a foundation focused on supporting real cancer patients and their families. She never spoke about Mom again, referring to her only as my former daughter on the rare occasions her name came up. Marcus went back to his finance job but with a new cynicism about family and trust. Diane returned to London but visited grandmother more frequently, trying to fill some of the void Mom's betrayal had left. And me, I stayed close to grandmother, seeing her vulnerability for the first time and wanting to protect her from further hurt. The updated will now splits grandmother's estate between Uncle James, Aunt Patricia, and the 3 of us grandchildren. Each of us gets around $8 million when she passes. It's less than we would have received originally, but none of us care. The money feels tainted now, corrupted by what Mom did to try to get more of it. I see Mom occasionally. Awkward, painful meetings where we talk about nothing important and avoid the elephant in the room. She's never apologized, not really. She still maintains she was driven to it by family pressure and unfair treatment. She's never taken responsibility for the calculated cruelty of faking cancer while her mother grieved her impending death. My relationship with her is broken beyond repair. I can't look at her without seeing the woman in those photos, healthy and laughing while we cried over her supposed terminal diagnosis. I can't forget the nights I spent researching treatments and planning her final days while she was planning how to spend her fraudulent inheritance. The hardest part is reconciling the mother who raised me with the woman who committed such elaborate fraud. Those two people seem incompatible. Was she always capable of this and just hiding it? Or did something change in her, some breaking point where greed overcame decency? I'll never know for sure. But I learned some hard lessons about money and family. About how wealth corrupts relationships, breeding resentment and entitlement. About how people you love can be capable of astonishing cruelty when enough money is at stake. About how trust, once shattered, can never be fully repaired. Grandmother is 92 now. She's in good health but slowing down, facing her own mortality with the dignity Mom pretended to have. We spend a lot of time together and sometimes she talks about feeling like she failed as a mother. That she must have done something wrong to raise a daughter capable of such betrayal. I tell her it wasn't her fault. That Mom made her own choices. But I can see the doubt in her eyes. The wondering what she could have done differently. That Christmas gala was 6 years ago. We still hold them annually but they're different now. Smaller, more intimate without the spectacle Mom loved. We toast to family but the word feels fragile now. Conditional. Based not on blood but on trust and integrity. I think about Marcus pulling me into that library often. How in one moment, everything I believed about my family shattered. How learning the truth was both devastating and necessary. If he hadn't hired that investigator, if we'd never learned the truth, Mom would have gotten away with it. She'd have inherited $25 million based on lies while grandmother mourned a daughter who wasn't dying. Sometimes I wonder if ignorance would have been better. If the truth was worth the destruction it caused. But then I remember that fake truth was destroying us too. Just more slowly. More insidiously. At least now we know who we're dealing with. At least now the remaining family relationships are built on honesty, however painful that honesty might be. Mom's fake illness taught me that love has limits. That family loyalty can be poisoned by greed. That the people you trust most can be the ones who hurt you worst. These are dark lessons but necessary ones. I'm more careful now about who I trust. More protective of my own resources and boundaries. More aware that people's actions don't always match their words, and that even the most convincing performance might be hiding a lie. The $18 million mom tried to steal is still in grandmother's accounts, managed carefully and divided according to a will built on truth instead of manipulation. When grandmother passes, that money will go to people she chose based on their actual character, not their ability to fake tragedy. And mom will get nothing. Not because she failed to get sick, but because she succeeded in showing her true character. That's the inheritance she earned. Nothing but the consequences of her choices. The library where Marcus told me the truth is still my least favorite room in grandmother's house. I avoid it when I can, not wanting to relive that moment when my understanding of my family fundamentally changed. But sometimes I go in there deliberately, reminding myself of what happened. Of what people are capable of when money is at stake. It's a painful memory, but an important one. A reminder to question, to verify, to never assume that love and family are enough to prevent betrayal. Because as my mother proved, sometimes they're not. Thanks for sticking with me through this story. It's still hard to talk about sometimes, but I hope it helps someone recognize manipulation in their own family before it goes too far. If you made it to the end, drop a comment about your experiences with family inheritance drama. I love reading all your comments.